he fought, and I didn't tell you, he fought in 3 wars.
No
He
way.
fought, he fought in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Let him tell you about that.
Welcome to Lunch Break. We have a special episode for you here today. I'm really excited to be here with my friend Julian, my good friend, as always, Pastor Tom Touchstone.
Hi, why am I always the pastor on this show? I don't mind that, but yeah, I'm really excited.
You know, I have a hard time calling you anything but that, Tom.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. I don't mind.
We've been friends for like, what, close to 30 years.
30-some years, yeah. I
Long time.
I knew him when he was 13.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Close to it.
So I've been enduring.
Yeah, he's been patient with me and needed.
So
we got a special show, and we're gonna kick it off here in just a second. But Julian, to kind of start us off, I know we got someone special here. If you want to kind of introduce where we're going with this and let us know. Start us off.
Gosh, and how special is this person? Again, when we talk about our veterans, and especially our World War II veterans, we're losing them so many by the day. So the ones that we have left, being able to recognize them, cherish them, and show them our appreciation every opportunity that we get is a blessing in and of itself.
Yeah.
And so with this particular veteran, this is Lieutenant Colonel George E. Harvey. He is a Tuskegee Airman. Now, not a lot of people know about Tuskegee Airmen. They're not teaching about this special group of men as much as they used to.
I've seen the movie, and thank you for what you did. The movie is so inspiring.
Yes,
it is.
It is beyond inspiring. I mean, I think the good thing about this and the story that I did on him, it allowed for other details to come out that couldn't come out in the movie, because the movie has an element of entertainment to keep you coming back, keep you watching, as opposed to actually sitting down with one of these men and getting the actual story from ground zero.
Yeah.
And their day-to-day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So we are truly in for a treat having him here with us. And it's a treat for me every time. It's like it's always brand new.
It is. And real quick, again, I mentioned Julian is a new friend of mine. Got to know him through my dad, actually. And but we're going to come back with him. We wanted to do a special episode for Veterans Day, which is tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And but in that, we wanted to bring in Colonel Harvey for this episode, and then we'll come back later on and talk with Julian just one-on-one.
Well, I think we're going to have Julian on Muscle Matters.
We are.
And, I'm even thinking this is kind of a ministry.
Yeah.
This, what you do. I mean, it's kind of something that you're doing, because I appreciate what Lieutenant Colonel Harvey has done, because I want other people, I want younger people, I want my daughters who are 23 and 26 to be able to hear this. And they work with our show. And I think, like you said, Julian, that the story gets lost.
Yes.
And I think we're living in a desperate time where the veteran stories need to be told. People need a good history lesson about what this country means and what it stands for.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the great men and women that served our country. Wow.
Yeah. So Julian, if you want to welcome Harvey or Colonel Harvey to our show.
Colonel Harvey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, they've given me the honor to welcome you to the show. And it's not my show, but they let me welcome you. Mm-hmm. So, again.
Well, thank you so much.
Another great honor. So, Lieutenant Colonel George E. Harvey, welcome to the show today. How are you, sir?
I'm fine so far.
Boy, it truly is an honor to have you here, Colonel.
It is, Colonel Harvey. It is. Hey, let me get my, they don't pay me unless I get this out of the way, Lieutenant Colonel. So I got a job that I'm supposed to do when I'm the co-pilot, which I am probably, I think I might be a passenger today. But usually Mike, if he's running the show, then I'm the co-pilot. But we have a question that we like to ask everybody, because we're going to get into your story. But is there anything, and there again, I know that you've been alive on this earth for 92 years. What a blessing.
97 years.
97.
Yeah.
Wow, what did I think? 92. Well, I just
Thanks.
I just made you younger. So,
Yeah.
but
Thank you.
but a lot of people know your story. Is there something about you, and we don't have to raise up any stories that you don't want to, but is there anything about you that maybe somebody doesn't know? You know, it's like on our show, we found out that we had a fire chief that was colorblind. And we always just told him that we don't want to cut the red wire with him in the room, you know, or ask him to. Is there anything that maybe somebody doesn't know about you that, there again, just something that's kind of random?
Oh, I don't know. I've talked so much about the affairs. People should know everything about me. I don't know.
Okay.
And, but one of the big things about me is that I went into pilot training and completed as a pilot and got my wings and commissioned as a second lieutenant and was preparing to go overseas. And I'd never driven an automobile.
Oh, that is a good one.
The way life was in those days. I remember just before going overseas, I drove a LaSalle for the first time at Walterboro, South Carolina. And, and that's it. Then I went overseas and flew the B-51.
Now, Colonel Hardy, I sat with you through 3 sessions, and I did not know that you learned how to fly a plane before you drove a car.
A combat plane.
I graduated from pilot training and had my wings and was preparing and flying the P-47, preparing to go to combat. One day the fellow said, George hadn't driven the car, and I drove from the flight line back to the barracks.
That is a great story.
Great.
So as we dive into the story, and Julian, you can feel free to ask any questions as we go along here as well, because you know Colonel Hardy better than both Tom and I. But Colonel, can you share with us, kind of starting with the backstory and how that led into you being one of the original Tuskegee Airmen?
Well, about 940 some graduated from pilot training, and of that number, about 355 went overseas. Of the 355, only 4 of us are left that we know about.
Wow!
So that's it, just 4 of us, and I'm the youngest of that group.
You're the baby of that group, then, right?
Don't say it that way. But
I'm getting in trouble already.
You are, Tom.
Don't say it that way. That's good.
That's
cool.
fantastic.
There again, we're so honored to have you on here, and that is such an amazing statement.
So for those watching or listening who don't know, can you tell us what the Tuskegee Airmen were and are known for?
Okay, the Tuskegee Airmen, racial segregation was a big thing in the service for many years, and the Navy was really racially segregated. And when I went in the service, the Navy, you could only be a mess attendant. In the Army, they had some infantry and cavalry units, but no pilots. And that started in 1941 when President Roosevelt was a key to that, to get black pilots to fly. And they started at Tuskegee. Tuskegee got the contract for primary flying. You see, the Army had such a requirement, they didn't have enough instructors. So 4 phases of pilot training, just classroom work for 10 weeks, then primary flying, then basic flying, and advanced flying. Well, primary flying is just flying an airplane. And so the Army contracted that out to universities and colleges. And Tuskegee got the contract for primary flying for the Afro-American group, the Tuskegee Airmen, what became the Tuskegee Airmen. And they started at Tuskegee Army Airfield, then went to Tuskegee Institute for 10 weeks for primary flying, and Tuskegee had to hire black instructors to teach us primary flying. Then the second, the third, and fourth phases, 10 weeks each, we had white military pilots who were instructors for pilot training.
Colonel Hardy, when you went out on your first mission, talk about what that was like and how old you were.
The first mission, I've had so many missions since then, but the thing of it was that I flew as a wingman over there. Mm-hmm. The experienced pilots were in the odd numbers, 1, 3, whatnot. The wingmen were 2 and 4, flying someone's wing, experienced pilot's wing. And our job was not to go after German airplanes, but to stay on his wing and protect him. Because he is going to get the airplane, but we want to make sure no one gets on his tail while he's going after that German airplane. And that was our job, and that was my job. And we would then get on airplanes and taxi out from where we parked all night, and taxi out in sequence of takeoff out to the end of the runway and shut our engines down, and then wait for the takeoff time. And then we'd take off two at a time. The leader and the wingman take off together. And they go down the runway, then the other two, and they get off in a hurry. And you have to form as fast as possible. And then go and meet the bombers and escort them over to German targets and then bring them back.
And
now, the P-51 had a long range, so if the mission was short, we'd probably go back over Germany and look for targets of opportunity on the ground to shoot them trains and things like that. So.
Okay. And how old were you?
19. I was still 19 then. So.
What were you doing when you were 19?
Wasn't flying planes. Right?
No, definitely wasn't flying planes. I was probably trying to figure out how to get out of work.
And here he is. He's over Germany escorting bombers at night. I still can't wrap.
It's a different generation.
I can't wrap my head around that.
Yeah, I cannot
and
wrap my mind.
You've got to realize we were flying the P-51, which was one of the best airplanes they had in World War II.
Wow.
P-51.
So how did you end up going into that school and becoming a Tuskegee Airman?
It was just a fortune of luck. See, I graduated from high school in June of 42, and I turned 17 that same month. I had a year to wait to go into the service. And so I got a job, and then about February of 1943, the government announced if you were 17 and a high school graduate, you could take the aviation cadet exam. I rushed up and took it and passed it, and went to 6 weeks of. I turned 18 in June of 43, got orders, and before you know it, I was at Keesler Army Airfield for 6 weeks of basic training, and from there directly to Tuskegee Institute for college work for pilots. And then in December 43, I started pilot training and graduated in September 44. So it was a fast track.
So
I was just fortunate to be there at the right time.
So Julian shared with me something interesting. I'd like you to share this for the audience, or Julian, and you can jump in if you want to. But there was something about the Tuskegee Airmen that nobody expected them to succeed, right?
Well, that's the way it was. Yes, they didn't expect them to succeed.
And you guys went on to show them that you were some of the best pilots that there was.
Well, we were good pilots. We did a damn good job, I thought. So, well, one thing, we stuck with the bombers more so than some of the white groups. Colonel Davis ensured that we did that. So, you see, you fly over Germany escorting bombers. German fighters can come in and attack and draw the fighters off. And then the bombers may not have as many fighters to protect them. Then another group of Germans can hit them. But Colonel Davis said, you don't go chasing the fighters. If they leave, you let them go. You stick with the bombers. There are 10 men on every bomber and only one man in that German airplane. You bring those 10 men home. And it got to be something where people felt the Red Tails would stick with them.
What is...
And, it also helped in this respect is that if you had more airplanes with the group, some of the bombers would be damaged and whatnot and couldn't keep up. Well, with the number of airplanes we had left, we could always detail a couple of airplanes to go and stay with that bomber to protect it, where other groups didn't have enough fighters left because they were chasing other Germans all over the place, see. But we had enough to protect people like that. A couple of airplanes to stick with that bomber until they got to safe territory.
What was the significance of the Red Tails? I know I'm so honored to be able to talk to somebody that was there, but I saw the movies, and I don't think they ever explained significantly why the Red Tails.
Well, if you look at the airplanes that flew in World War II, 15th Air Force dictated the paint job. The nose spinner was red. But the rudder, now you have the thing on the back, is just the piece in the back, the rudder that moves. There's two pieces to that rudder that's standing straight up. And that rudder, movable rudder, was supposed to be painted with the squadron, with the group insignia. And one group had yellow and black stripes, squares, and we had the rudder supposed to be painted red. Just the rudder. for identification purposes because it stands up and you see it. But we had a lot of red paint, so we painted the whole damn tail red. Just to run it's on a horizontal stabilizer. And you could see it much farther away, so we became known as the Red Tails.
I love that. You know, what a random thing that you get to, what an honor to experience that story right here.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
It's very powerful. Let me ask you real quick, Colonel, with the Red Tails, who came up with the idea of calling you guys the Red Tail Angels? Where did that come from? Did that come from the bombers or?
Oh, I'm not. It must have been from the bombers, yeah, because we protected them.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, I began to realize we would stick with them.
Yeah.
And so that became sort of known. So
that seems to be a very significant part. You guys staying with them, and it's that, you know, your captain told you guys to stay with them, and you guys did that, and that seems like it was significant to the bomber.
No, it was more than that. It was more than that. I didn't hear it, but they said, Colonel Davis said, you chase that fighter, and you leave the bombers and chase that fighter, and you shoot him down. We'll give you a medal for shooting him down, but I'm going to court-martial you for leaving the bombers.
Wow. That's crazy.
So Colonel Davis was impetus in keeping us with the bombers. So.
Well, that's the main thing because it saved a lot of guys' lives.
Yeah, how did you feel as you were on those life-threatening missions?
Well, I don't know. You call it life-threatening. I didn't think of it that way. We were flying a good airplane. We thought we had the best airplane, and I knew I was the best pilot around.
Oh, okay.
So it's one of those things, you know.
I like that.
You know,
it's one of those things. We were trained. We were well trained, and we did our job. And we flew with some great guys. They taught us a lot.
Let me ask you, Colonel Hardy, did you guys, as pilots, compete with one another? That type of inner competition where you push each other to be the best that you can be, pilot-wise?
Well, we wanted to be the best, but we cooperated with each other. Mm-hmm. That sort of thing. See, we worked together as a team. Mm-hmm. You know, that's one of those things. So.
All right, fantastic.
And we wanted to protect each other as best we could.
Yes.
You know, when you're up there, there's got to be a lot of things that go through your mind, you know, and I know your mind's on your mission. Did you have any experiences up there? And I don't know what your faith is like, but did you, you know, I mean, because I can't just imagine as you're in combat, you know, I've got a few veteran friends. We have one of our hosts here who lost an arm in Iraq, and he just said there is no atheist in a foxhole. Is there any kind of saying like that with airmen when you're in the air?
Well, not necessarily, but the thing is, you're busy all the time. You see, the P-51, you had no autopilot in it, see. So you got to fly it all the time, see, and keep up. And being a wingman, you've got to stay on somebody's wing, so you got to keep your eye on him. At the same time, you're supposed to be looking for German airplanes, so your head and eyes are moving all the time, see. You just keep in motion all the time. And that's it, and time just passes. Before you know it, the mission's over again. So you're back again.
Yeah, your head's on a swivel for sure.
That's right. You're looking around. You always got something to do. You know, you're looking for German airplanes. You're making sure your leader, you're with him. You know where he's going, because he doesn't tell you when he's going to turn, whatnot. You just stay on his wing, and when he turns, he turns. And he's looking for German airplanes, too. And you've just got to learn to stick with them, say.
So some of the things that Julian had shared with us is that you're highly educated. You went to university, and you, if I read that correctly, you had a degree in engineering?
Well, before I got out of the service, I went in 43 as a high school graduate. I got out in 46 and went to NYU for 1 year. Then I was recalled to active duty, and in 55 to 57, I went to the Institute of Technology at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. It's a fully accredited university run by the Air Force. Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard officers can go there. And so I went there for 2 years and received my Bachelor of Science in Electrical Engineering. And that was in 57. And then in 62, they contacted me to go to graduate school in a new field called reliability engineering. So I went there for 19 months and got a master's in systems engineering - reliability. And then I worked in systems command for 5.5 years after that before going to combat in Vietnam. So I got a full education, 2 engineering
So you were in
degrees.
Vietnam as well.
And I worked for 5 years in systems command, developing systems overseas. For 3.5 years, I was the chief of engineering and program manager for the 490L Overseas Audubon Switches program. Audubon, it was the part of the military's first worldwide direct-dial telephone system. And we successfully cut over the first sites in Europe and 4 sites in '69 and 1 in Panama. And the others would come in after that. But in the meantime, I got called to go to Vietnam to fly a gunship over there.
He fought, and I didn't tell you, he fought in 3 wars.
No
He
way.
fought. He fought in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. Let him tell you about that. My God.
Yeah, please.
Well, I went in as a pilot and flew as a pilot with the 99 Fighter Squadron in Italy under Colonel Benjamin Davis was the group commander. I got out in '46 and went to NYU. When I went back into the service, I was a pilot, but I wanted to broaden that to make sure I stay around airplanes. So I went into airborne electronics maintenance for 50 weeks at Keystone Field. When I graduated, racial integration had taken place. And I was sent to the 19th Bomb Group on Guam, a B-29 outfit, as a maintenance officer, 20th Bomb Squadron. But as a pilot, I could fly the base flight airplanes, but I wanted to fly the B-29. And I checked out in the B-29 and was qualified as and they put me on as a co-pilot on a crew. I still had my maintenance job. But then the Korean War started, and we moved to Okinawa, and the war started the 25th of September, 1950. And my crew, we flew our first mission on the 30th of September over Korea. And I got to fly 45 combat missions over Korea in B-29s. And then came back to the States and was in maintenance. I got to SAC. They saw my maintenance AFSC, and I ended up in maintenance squadrons. I had the Armored Electronic Maintenance Squadron and as a maintenance supervisor and also as a squadron commander in SAC, a maintenance squadron commander. So.
And then you finished
Then I
up,
went
and then you
into
finished,
technology and what?
and then you finished up going to Vietnam.
Well, yeah, I was working at Systems Command, working as a program manager and chief of engineering for the switches overseas, 10 in Europe, 1 in Panama, and 5 in the Western Pacific. But I got called out of that when they modified C-119. C-119 was a troop-carrier airplane, but they needed gunships in a hurry, and they couldn't get 130s, so they modified 52 119s. And I had lots of flying time in that type of airplane. And so they suddenly looking for pilots and called me back.
Wow.
So I had to train as a commander on a 119 gunship, 11-man crew on that airplane, but we were looking for trucks at night on the Ho Chi Minh Trail and whatnot. And we fly in a circle around the target, picking up targets with infrared equipment. We only flew at night. So, and you had to aim the airplane. The guns were fixed, so you had to aim the airplane. And you had 11 men on the crew, but the pilot flying the airplane had the gun sight next to him. And he's the one who would make sure, put the airplane in the right position in the circle. And when it was properly, the targets lined up, he would fire the guns. The pilot flying the airplane is the one who pushes the button to fire the gun. So, and it was pretty effective too.
How many missions did you fly in Vietnam?
70 combat missions over there.
Wow.
So you kept upping your missions. I mean, wow. Hey, I was impressed before we started. I'm flabbergasted now. That's awesome.
And I knew this information, and I'm sitting here with you guys. I'm still blown away.
Right.
I mean, it blows me back when I hear him talk about this. This is it's incredible.
Yeah, it's very incredible. How many people would have just been good with the World War II experience,
Right.
the Korean experience in Vietnam? I mean, you know, you just I think there's just a desire. Have you guys ever been told that you're a breed apart? I've always felt
No.
I
So
felt
you're just trained to do a job, you know.
you're a humble
And they
man.
trained us well.
You're a very humble man, and that's
Yes,
a
you
trait
are.
that I believe
Yeah.
that you Tuskegee Airmen showed, and that's something that the movie got across to me was that you guys were committed, you were dedicated, which this is just amazing that you would serve your country in 3 wars, risking life and limb.
Yeah.
Thank
for
you
that
again.
long. How
Yes,
long were you
thank
in
you.
the?
Well, it was our, as we say, it was our country too. So it's just one of those things. That,
Yeah. How long were you in the military?
well, I went in July of '43, got out in November '46, went back in June of '48, and retired in November '71. That's about 28 years, something like that, of active.
So you did you receive full retirement then? I assume.
Yes, I have pension. Yes. I'm still receiving that. Yes.
That's fantastic, and you deserve it.
Yes, very well deserved it.
Yeah, for all the veteran stories that we have that aren't as, glamorous, it's just so good to hear one that is by design. We designed it for our men and women to serve this country, and when they come out of service, to be taken care of. That was the design.
Yes.
And I'm so sorry that so many of our veterans aren't able to experience that. Big reason why I made contact with you way back when, I guess, 3 years ago, and why I keep contact now. And I'm thankful to these two guys for their help, because they're also trying to get the word out that, our veterans are very important. We got, our precious armed forces that keep us free. Yeah. Very important. So
Yes.
we can never thank you enough, Colonel Hardy. We can never thank you enough.
Thank you so much.
Our whole show is based on faith, freedom,
And family.
And that's something you represent.
Very much so. Yeah. Fantastic.
That's why I had to have you. That's why I had to have you come, Colonel Hardy. They needed to meet somebody
Well,
like
thanks so
you.
much.
Yes, inspire us and other people.
And this is our Veterans Day episode. So it's great to have such a decorated and honored veteran on our show for this.
I can't remember a time that we've had somebody as distinguished as Lieutenant Colonel Hardy.
Well, thanks so much.
And let me ask you this real quick. If you want to share it, I hope you do. You just received an honor from the city of Tallahassee, the naming of an air show after you. You remember that?
Well, yes. Yes, it was a nice few days up there, yes.
Well, hey, tell everybody about that, how wonderful that was and what that was.
Well, I've been up there for a couple of years, and the Wings and Wheels show they had at the auto show and airplanes out at the airport. And this year they named it after me, the Lieutenant Colonel George E. Hardy Wings and Wheels show.
Yes.
So the mayor gave me that presentation.
Yeah, I believe they gave you 2 proclamations. They gave you one Friday night, and then they gave you another one Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, well, one duplicate.
Yes.
There again, I'm going to say it. We have a humble man that is very distinguished, man.
But you know, I just want to say something.
Yeah.
I went up there and I do certain things up there. And one of the things I did was talk to a group of young kids, 10, 11 years old, about 40-some. And I had the greatest time with that group of kids.
That's cool.
They were so enthusiastic and raising their hands with questions and whatnot. The teachers had prepared them for who I was. But I was just so surprised the enthusiasm. And that group of 30 or 40-some kids.
Do you remember any questions that they asked you?
I don't remember the question to ask, but that was one of the things that the teacher running things did a good job. Suddenly she shut everything down and said, wait a minute. Because everybody had their hands up, And she said, and when someone was asking the question, most of the kids still had their hands up, She said, put your hands down till the question's over, because some would ask duplicate questions, But the enthusiasm I saw in that class was just so fantastic. those young kids.
You know, I do have one question. Do you have any combat stories that stick up in your mind from World War II?
Combat stories that, one thing that sticks out in my mind was my last mission with the B-29. I wasn't supposed to fly, but a good friend asked me if I was flying the next day. I said no. He said something wrong with his co-pilot, so he asked me to fly with him, and I flew with him. And before we got on the airplane, we went to briefing, and then we got to the airplanes, and getting off the vehicle lurched, and it caught my foot, and I fell to the side and rolled over, and got up, and shook my hands on the driver, apologized, whatnot. Everything went on well. What we didn't realize was I fractured a bone in my elbow when I did that.
Oh, wow.
I didn't realize it, say. Anyway, we took off, and Lou said, gear up, and I moved my arm over to hit the gear switch to bring it up, and that's when I had the first indication something's wrong with my left elbow.
Oh, no.
You know? And that was an 11-hour mission. And by the time we got to the target, over 6 hours, my arm was really hurting.
Yeah, I guess
And
so.
And after we dropped the bombs over a bridge over the Yalu River, the Chinese were bringing stuff across, and we had to bomb in 3 ships, because they didn't want our bombs going across on the Chinese side of the bridge, just the Korean side, because we didn't want China to officially get into the war. They were in the war, but not officially, you know. And so after we dropped the bombs, we had 5 hours to get back. So someone said, "You want a shot of morphine?" So I took out my E&E kit. That's where you have your morphine. I gave it to someone. They opened it and gave me a shot of morphine. And, I was on top of the world.
That's a good story.
Well, I think that just is a great example of men were built different.
They were
back
built
then.
different. They were tough
Yeah.
Right.
and determined.
Men
Tough.
were real
you
men.
know,
Yes.
but I came back wounded, but I didn't get a Purple Heart for that.
I like it because you were
I was
wounded
injured
on
before
the.
we took off.
Yeah, you were wounded on the ground before you got in the plane.
Man,
We're gonna get you a Purple Heart, man. We got to figure it out.
No.
I love that.
well, I know it's got to be getting late where you are, Lieutenant Colonel. Is there anything you want to share before we jump off, or do you guys have any questions
just
you want to?
leave anything you want to leave with our audience.
Well, I don't know. It's the thing is that I went into the service years ago, and I really got to like it. I adapted to it. But the main thing was I love to learn, and I listened to my instructors and followed what they said, and I was successful.
What a great
Just
piece
pay
of
attention in class.
what a great piece of advice to give the audience.
Yeah.
You know, listening and learning, and that's another true attribute
It
that
is.
that's it's needed to be heard today.
Yeah. Well, man, again, thank you so much for being here.
Yes,
Colonel.
thank you again, Colonel.
It's been a pleasure having you, and I don't want to keep you up too much later. I know it's got to be I know for me, at 9 o'clock my time, it'd be getting past my bedtime.
And Colonel, and definitely Colonel, from me, thank you so much. You have always, from day one, been right there with me, to share your story. And then anytime I've called you, you've been right there. I know that I owe you. You keep telling me that. I'm gonna get to you. Okay.
Yeah,
No problem.
It's a real
No
blessing.
problem. No problem. Well, thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Thank you
thank
so much.
you very
Thank
The
you
honor is
so
all
much.
ours.
God bless.
Okay, take care.
All righty. Bye.
Well, I hope you guys enjoyed all that. Thank you guys for watching.
What an
Happy
honor.
Veterans Day.
I just got to say that.
Yeah.
What an honor. I mean, and you get to know this man for 3 years. As I was just sitting on that show, I just had to think, what a 16-year-old boy and a 18-year-old boy graduating, can't wait. You know, that is something I think is different nowadays. Can't wait to serve his country. Can't wait to go in there. Can't wait to learn to fly an airplane before he learns to drive a car.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And then serve in three wars because he was such a humble man.
And if you counted, I don't know if you counted all of the missions he flew in, over 100.
And so what that means, though, Mike, and this is something that was impactful to me. That means he was risking his life every mission, willing to. That Jesus says that man has no greater gift than to lay down his life for another.
That's right.
Here we have a man that, like he said, he fell in love with it, dedicated his life to it, but was willing to put his actions in front of his words.
Yeah.
You know, and to, you know, to have the elbow injury on his last mission.
Man.
You know, I think that's a capstone.
Yeah, but man, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We're gonna have Julian back to talk about what he does, which is also really cool.
Well,
some really cool
we're
stuff.
gonna have Julian on Muscle Matters because the guy's built.
He is.
And I love that.
He
so,
played for Fresno State, right?
Yeah,
Yep,
I
played for
love
Fresno
that.
State, yeah.
I love my,
So
my son-in-law graduated from Fresno State. He went in.
fantastic.
Yeah, there's a story there.
So I want to say to all of you veterans watching, thank you for your
thank you
service.
for your
Yes, thank you for your
And,
service.
Happy
Thank you.
Veterans Day.
Yeah, that
God
day
bless.
is meant for you.
That's right.
Thank you, guys.